Hello. Who are the four horsemen of the apocalypse? The four horses of the apocalypse are expressed in four distinct colors: white, red, black, and green in the book of Revelation. They may be mentioned again in the Old Testament in the book of Zechariah. But there are some slight differences in the two prophecies, and therefore these two prophecies in Scripture may or may not be related. The most profound difference is the color of the fourth horse. The four horsemen may be the most famous, most misunderstood, and the most written about prophecy in all of Scriptures. Although there are dozens of interpretations circulating in the world today pertaining to this colorful prophecy of the end times, most fail to realize an obvious fact about the four horses and their riders, which is they are the first four seals out of 7 that will be opened up, which leads us into the tribulation years. Maybe this is why the first 4 seals are represented by horses. The main prophecy of these 4 horsemen is found in Revelation 6, verses 1 through 8. But by reading the similar prophecy in Zechariah in conjunction with the four horsemen in Revelation, we can obtain a little more detail about the overall vision. Although the Zechariah vision is about 4 chariots drawn by different color horses. In other words, Zechariah 6:5 may or may not be connected to the 4 horses in Revelation. I don't think anyone understands this connection completely, but nevertheless, comparing the two does supply us with more insight into both prophecies. The point is that by combining these two prophecies while studying the 4 horsemen of Revelation, it should give us that little bit of extra information needed about each horse to help interpret the end-time prophecy more accurately. The most exciting additional information that we will receive is that these horsemen are 4 spirits, or ruachs. This is important to know because this means that we are not to take this vision literally. Therefore, this can only be about the overall environment or conditions of our reality and the world during the end time era. Apparently then, the world will be controlled by the spiritual forces that these 4 horses and their riders are representing. In other words, these essences or spiritual powers mentioned in Zechariah 6:5 will all be on the earth in the time of the end. So then it becomes very interesting and maybe even vibrant to our walk that we get a broad spectrum of understanding as to what and who these famous 4 horsemen of the apocalypse really are. Let's begin in Zechariah 6 and read what it actually says. And I lifted up my eyes again and looked and saw 4 chariots coming from between 2 mountains. And the mountains were mountains of bronze, which the first chariot were red horses, and with the second chariot black horses, and with the third chariot white horses, and with the fourth chariot strong speckled horses. So I responded and said to the messenger who was speaking to me, "What are these, Master?" And the messenger answered and said to me, "These are 4 spirits of the skies, coming forth from presenting themselves before the Master of all the earth, the one the black horses is going out to the land of the north, and the white ones have gone out after them. And the speckled ones have gone out to the land of the south. And the strong ones went out, eager to go, to walk to and fro in the earth. And he said, Go, walk to and fro in the earth. So they walked to and fro in the earth, and he called to me and spoke to me, saying, See, those who go toward the land of the north have given rest to my Ruach in the land of the north. Now let's compare that we just read to the four horsemen of the apocalypse in Revelation 6, 1 through 8. And I saw when the Lamb opened one of the seals, and I heard one of the four living creatures saying, like a sound of thunder, Come and see. And I looked and saw a white horse, and he who sat on it holding a bow. And a crown was given to him, and he went out, overcoming and to overcome. And when he opened the second seal, I heard the second living creature saying, Come and see. And another horse, fiery red, went out, and it was given to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that they should slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. And when he opened the third seal, I heard the third living creature say, Come and see. And I looked and saw a black horse, and he who sat on it holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, A quart of wheat for a day's wage, and 3 quarts of barley for a day's wage. And do not harm the oil and the wine. And when he opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth living creature saying, Come and see. And I looked and saw a green horse, and he who sat on it had the name Death, and the grave followed with him. And authority was given to them over a fourth of the earth, to kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and by the beasts of the eretz, or the earth. Well, first of all, it is vitally important to realize that the four horsemen represent the first 4 seals out of the given 7 seals. Because in retrospect, if these 4 seals have been opened, we may be closer to the tribulation days than most people even realize. Basically, if we can interpret the prophecy correctly and come up with sufficient evidence that the 4 horsemen are present on the earth with us now, then this would in fact mean that only 3 more seals remain to be opened. Scripture says that the 5th seal is the souls under the altar. Furthermore, these spirits under the altar are the beings that were slain for the word of Yahuah and for the witness which they held. This should be a startling revelation for the Nazarene, because when we compare the spirits under the altar to the description of the remnant in Revelation chapter 12, verse 17, it becomes clear that this may be describing us. Let's read it. The devil was enraged with the woman, and he went to fight with the remnant of her seed, those guarding the commands of Yahuah and possessing the witness of Yahushua Mashiach. Wow, huh? That could be. So then, it becomes easy to understand or believe that the spirits or souls under the altar is a metaphor. that is referencing the beginning of the Great Tribulation years, spoken of by Yahushua himself in Matthew 24. And Scripture is very, very clear that the sixth seal is the day of Yahuah. Because when the sixth seal is opened, there is a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood. And the stars of the heaven fell to the earth, as a fig tree drops its unripe figs shaken by a strong wind. And heaven departed like a scroll being rolled up, and every mountain and island was moved out of its place. And so that only leaves the seventh seal, which doesn't really reveal too much, except that there will be a great silence in heaven for about half an hour. Then it only seems to refer us back to the same 7 events we just read about, but this time spoken in more detail with the use of an alternate description, which uses 7 messengers and 7 trumpets to announce each succeeding event in order. But just like the 7th seal ended with silence, the 7th messenger was also silenced as he was just about to blow the 7th trumpet. So apparently then, the 7th trumpet may be a precursor that introduces the 7 thunders, which Scripture describes as hidden. Seal up what the 7 thunders spoke, and do not write them. So therefore, the 7th seal and the 7th trumpet may be whatever the 7 thunders are, which is hidden and sealed until a fullness of time has come. But ironically, the 7th trumpet is describing a massive war that will kill a third part of mankind. This can only be described in World War III. And by the sounds of it, it will be a nuclear war. Scripture refers to this as the second woe. So if we consider that the 6th trumpet is ushering in World War III, then it becomes common sense that the 7th trumpet must be ushering in the most famous war spoken about in Scripture, which will be another nuclear war. In other words, the 7th trumpet can only be ushering in the final and most anticipated war of all time, known around the world as Armageddon. Another clue for this is that the 7th trumpet is also called the third woe. We should also mention that there are 7 vials too. And they also seem to be referring to the same events in the latter days. Ironically, the 7th vial seems to be describing the same events as the 6th seal and the 7th trumpet. Mind you now, the 7th trumpet is not the same as the last trump mentioned in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 52, which is the return of Yahushua and the first resurrection and the gathering of the elect or bride from the 4 corners of the earth. That's also important. So let's try and keep that in mind, shall we? Ironically, the book of Revelation is not in chronological order, but it is in order, though, as far as the tenses go. The book of Revelation is clearly divided by the 3 tenses, or in 3 parts, if you will. Yahushua told John to write the things which you have seen, meaning the events of chapter 1, which reveals Yahushua as being Yahuah. Then he tells John to write about the things you see or which are, meaning what was going on in the present tense or time during John's lifetime. This was expressed by writing to the existing 7 assemblies. This is why I lean toward the theory that the messenger to the assembly in Philadelphia is written to the first Nazarene. Many students of the scriptures are interpreting the 7 assemblies to be referring to an expansive period of time or spiritual stages that the assemblies will be experiencing or practicing over the ages, starting with Yahushua's ascension and ending with the second coming of Yahushua. But since Yahushua plainly told John to write about the present time that he was living in, I personally believe that Revelations chapter 2 and 3 were written literally to the existing assemblies in John's era. Let's move on. So then, Yahushua tells John to write about the things which shall come afterwards, or in the future. John begins recording these events in chapter 4 and continues until the end of the Revelation in chapter 22. Amazingly, John seems to retell the same story with more details provided in each retelling of the revelation given to him by Yahushua. In other words, the 7 seals tell the long story, starting with the Messiah's time on earth in chapter 4 and ending at Armageddon in chapter 6. The 7 trumpets seem to tell a slightly shorter story, possibly beginning with the description of World War I and climaxing at the Battle of Armageddon in chapter 11. The 7 vials tells a super short story. It begins with the start of the Battle of Armageddon and quickly ends with the conclusion of the Battle of Armageddon in chapter 16. If we would draw a comparison chart of the 6th seal, the 7th trumpet, and the 7th vial, we could easily see that these 3 events are all describing the same event, which is the day of Yahuah. Let's get back to the 4 horses of the apocalypse. As previously mentioned, if we can in fact confirm that the spirits of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse is actually present on the earth as we speak, then the tribulation days are just around the corner, or may even be upon us now. As we examine each essence or spiritual power, let's keep the system of worldly control known as the beast in mind. In other words, remember that the beast is designed like a military coup with 3 tiers of power and control in place. The first in charge, or the hierarchy, is the clergy, or religious leaders who control by deception and division in different philosophies, denominations, or traditions. The second in charge, or the second tier, are the nobility, politicians or rulers who control the world with their chosen political systems. And the third tier is the common folk, or the laity, who push and shove while jockeying for positions, possessions, and power. And we should also mention the New Age 4th tier of control that now encompasses the first 3 tiers. This 4th tier is better known as the mainstream media outlet. So keeping this all in mind, let's look at the four horsemen in order as they appear in Revelation 6. The first one is the white horse. It is traditionally understood and taught to be the conqueror or conquest. And we know that the one who sits on it is holding a bow, and the crown is on his head, which was given to him, and he went out overcoming and to overcome. If we inject the prophecy of the white chariot and the white horses in Zechariah 6, we also know that he is a spiritual essence and headed to the north end of the world. And the white horse followed after the black horse. In more recent times, many students of Scripture have discovered a remarkable, almost eerie connection between the white horseman and the religious world power of control known as Catholicism or Christianity. Let's do a quick comparison. The Pope has a white robe or uniform, a white fish hat or mitre hat, a white truck, a white Pope mobile with a throne on top surrounded with bulletproof glass, a white helicopter, and a white jet and a white airplane. The main headquarters of the Catholic religion is in the Vatican City in Rome, Italy. And this is part of the Northern Hemisphere. The Catholic Church is deeply involved in business transactions of all sorts, and they are involved in the stock markets. This sheds some light on the statement that says the white horse followed after the black horses, which we will soon learn represents capitalism. The Pope and the other hierarchy also wear crowns and sit on many thrones. Also, the bow is a sign of Nimrod, the great hunter, which would suggest a connection to Babel. Well then, that shoe does seem to fit rather nicely, doesn't it? And since Scripture says that Babel the Great is the mother church, that would make the Protestant churches who spawned off of her the daughters or the horse. Obviously, there is no permanent division between the Catholic Church and the Protestant churches. The term Christianity encompasses them both. It's the same as a human daughter or human daughters. They cannot separate their flesh from their earthly mother's flesh that they came out of or were spawned from. Even though they may pretend to, by running away to the other parts of the globe and choose to live under slightly different philosophies. Another interesting fact is that the official flag for Christianity has a large white field with a red Latin cross inside a blue canton. The shade of red on the cross symbolizes the sacrificial blood of the Lamb. The blue represents the waters of baptism or immersion. The white field represents purity or holiness. In this light, all of Christianity would fit into the white horse's essence or spiritual power, this making the white horse a mammoth beast consisting of a multitude of followers in many nations or waters. Next is the red horse. It is traditionally understood and taught to be war. And we know that he went out and it was given to the one who sat on it to take peace from the earth, and that they should slay one another, and a great sword was given to him. Also in Zechariah, we know that the red horse is an essence or spiritual power that was called the strong ones, who went out among the earth eagerly to walk to and fro in the earth, meaning that they can be found mixed into the nations everywhere upon the earth. They seem to be busily trying to spread their influence, even with violence and war if necessary. In more recent times, many modern-day scriptural students have noticed a remarkable connection between the red horse and a mighty political system of control known as communism. It is well recognized that the color of communism is red, mixed with a dash of yellow and a pinch of blue. It is very common for someone to refer to Russia or China as Russian red or red China. Scripture also says that the riders of the red horse have a great sword and kill each other. Russia and China are both mighty military powers that have fought in many devastating wars around the globe in one role or another. In fact, both political powers murdered and killed many of their own citizens in an attempt to adopt a communist society. Red China's late leader, Mao Zedong, is credited with over 45 million deaths in a 4-year span, ranging from 1958 to 1962. This was known as the Great Leap Forward for communism. And Russia's Joseph Stalin is credited with nearly 30 million of his own citizens' deaths. The two gigantic land masses connect to each other. The communist country of Russia is in the far northern hemisphere and is connected to Red China's northern border. Red China itself lies in both the northern and the southern hemispheres. It is also interesting that Red China is known in certain circles as the Red Dragon. We can find secret communist or socialist takeover plots in nearly every country in the free world. So then, the shoe seems to fit in this case as well. Next is the black horse. It is traditionally taught and understood to mean famine. Scripture says that he who sat upon it is holding a pair of scales in his hand. And I heard a voice in the midst of the four living creatures saying, "A quart of wheat for a day's wages, a quart of barley for a day's wage, and do not harm the oil and the wine." This one is a no-brainer, folks. This passage almost flawlessly depicts the Chicago Board of Trade or the World Commodities Market. Scales or weights have always been a sign used for capitalism. And another interesting point is that a scale is also the sign for the United States legal system, which is another division of control connected to the main political system itself. And in Zechariah 6, we read that the black horse was a spiritual essence of power that is going out to the land of the north. Almost every capitalistic country in the world resides in the northern hemisphere. And the white horse's spirit, which we have learned is Catholicism or Christianity, resides mostly among the capitalistic political countries of the northern lands. In more recent times, many students of Scripture have discovered a remarkable, almost eerie connection between the Black Horsemen and the mighty political system of control in the world called capitalism. The whole world recognizes the color black to represent capitalism. With all the black suits and black shiny shoes we see in the free marketplaces, such as Wall Street, it's no wonder why the color black was chosen to represent this powerful political system of control. Also worth noting is that the mention of famine may refer to the black horse because capitalism is well known to be a dog-eat-dog world where only the strong survive. It is a cold and harsh reality for some people at times who must rely on themselves to make their own way in life. Those who work hard and are educated live the high life, while the less educated or less motivated can be seen living in the streets, ghettos, and begging for food and handouts on the street corners of its biggest cities. So, if you think about it, the shoe fits again. Next is the chloros, or green horse. This green horse is more recognized by most uninformed students to be the pale horse. But the word pale comes from a mistranslation of the word chloros in the Greek text. Apparently, a confused scribe or translator probably thought he had found a huge translational error because there's no such thing as a green horse. The word chloros shows up in scriptures 3 or 4 times, and in 3 of the 4 times it is translated as green, except for the chloros horse, in which it was translated as pale. So the correct translation, which is now found in most recent day modern translations, is green horse. This factual insight in itself almost makes this a no-brainer. But let's go ahead and investigate anyway, shall we? The green horse, or pale horse, is traditionally taught and understood to mean death. In more recent times, many students of Scripture have discovered a remarkable, almost uncanny connection between the green horsemen and the mighty religious system of control in the world called Islam. Scripture says that he who sat on it had the name Death, and the grave followed with him. And the green horse was given authority or control over 1/4 of the earth, to kill with sword and with hunger and with death and by the beasts of the earth. Amazingly, exactly 1/4 of the world's population is Muslim, who nearly exclusively practice Islam. This powerful political and religious system of control, known as Islam, clearly promotes a culture of death, with all the religious suicides, bombings, and religious wars they start, especially in the last 25 years or so. The image of an Islam religious fighter shows a young man standing up with a mask on his face and a headscarf on his head, while holding a sword and machine gun in each hand. There are usually crossed belts of ammunition on his chest, and usually the sign for Islam, the crescent moon and star, can be seen on his green headband or a green flag that is draped across his shoulders. Is there any doubt that this image depicts death and war? It's no secret that Islam is hell-bent on wiping Israel off the map. Their pure hatred for Israel and the Jewish people is sure to come to a head in the near future when Armageddon takes place. Their ayatollahs teach their followers that killing infidels as martyrs holds the promise of having 7 virgins given to them in the afterlife. They are taught from childhood that dying in a religious war guarantees their passage into a heavenly paradise. The followers of Islam are promised a special level of paradise for any who would be martyrs that are willing to blow themselves up as a suicide bomber or even behead an infidel with a sword. Also, they are promised by their teachers that their families will be well taken care of by the governmental system of control, which of course is an absolute monarchy type system in most cases. Sadly, the followers of Islam have been chopping off heads and killing people in the Middle East with swords for centuries, but the beheadings have recently been heightened to an alarming level of casualties, ever since the takeover of ISIS and the forming of a caliphate. When we combine all the radical religious sects and fanatics found in Islam that are killing people around the world, there's no wonder that Scripture says that death and the grave follow with them. Their main mission in the world is to wipe out Israel from off the face of the earth, and then to start a worldwide war that will kill all the infidels in the world as well. They radically believe that this would usher in the return of Muhammad and Allah. Again, the world has long recognized that the color for Islam is green. The color green is on most of their flags. In fact, nearly all of the world's 2 billion Muslims fly Islam's green flags and teach their children that the spirit of Islam is green. One strange point I would like to bring up is this: the strange resemblance between Islam and Catholicism. What I mean by that is both religious powers worship Mary and pray with the aid of rosary beads. And they both seem to allow creation worship in their chosen sects, meaning sun worship for the Catholics and moon worship for the Muslims. It's almost like the same author wrote both deadly doctrines. The only curveball here, folks, is in Zechariah 6, because it doesn't call the 4th horse green. It refers to the 4th horse as a strong, speckled horse, which went out into the land of the south. Amazingly, though, the vast majority of the Quran followers or Islam is in the southern hemisphere. The lands of the south would include Africa, Indonesia, India, South America, and parts of Asia. This part of the passage does make sense because there are many Muslims and Islam followers in the southern hemisphere. So the color of the 4th horse is really the only curveball here. Some translations label this horse as dapple, and some others translate it as being grizzled or bay in color. A few translations actually render the fourth horse to be a lighter shade of green, meaning a pale green. This is sort of like the American idiom, a bit green under the gills would suggest. How a bit green under the gills would suggest. And matter of fact, I have seen dabbled colored horses with a light greenish, yellowish color blend in their manes and tails. Although this slight difference may be suggesting that the two passages are not related, the combination of these two passages seems to support enough evidence that concludes that the four spirits of the four horsemen of the apocalypse or revelations are in fact present here on the earth right now in our modern era. Especially if we draw a structural chart using the devil's system of control, known as the beast, and file the horses accordingly to their respected tier levels of power. In other words, we would file the white horse and the green horse on the top tier of control because the two powerhouses are the clergy leaders or religious class. And the black horse and the red horse would be filed on the second tier of control because they are the noble class or rulers that just happen to be the two most powerful ruling governmental systems in the world. Take a look at this classical structural chart I made representing the beast. Okay, so if you can see is at the very top of the beast is the first tier, which is the clergy or the religious leaders. Now we can put the white horse and the green horse in this category because the white horse represents the biggest religion or assembly of clergy in the world when we combine Catholicism and Christianity together. And then the green horse is also a very large deity in itself. If we include the 2 billion Muslims that are mostly Islam worshipers, the Quran worshipers. So these are both huge powerhouses, religious powerhouses in the first tier of the beast. Now in the second tier of the beast is the nobilities, or the rulers, or the governments, or the politicians, or the kings and the queens. Okay, they fall here. We can put the black horse in the second tier of the beast because it represents one of the largest political systems on the planet, ruling systems, capitalism. And the red horse, one of the other largest political forces or powers on the planet, communism. So capitalism and communism is filed under the second tier, the rulers, the controllers. The laity is on the third tier, or the common folk. The clergy and the nobility fight over control of the laity. The laity fight within themselves, trying to jockey for positions, power, and possessions. Okay? They're all trying to move up. The fourth tier, which is fairly new, is the mainstream media. These people here, the job is to create chaos and confusion. They engulf the whole system of the beast to keep everybody confused and fighting and quarreling and arguing and jockeying for position and power and possessions. Okay, so these are the deceiving element of the beast. They're all deceivers, but this is their main job. So here you have it, folks. The system of the beast. The clergy, the white horse and green horse, the nobility, the black horse and the red horse, the laity or commoners, and the mainstream media. See what I mean, folks? Make your own flow chart or your in category. Create your own categorical structure of the beast. See what you come up with. So, if in fact these four essence or spiritual powers are present on earth with us now, as I believe they are, then that means that the first four seals have been opened. And so in retrospect, this can only mean that we are either in the last 7 years leading to Armageddon, or we are getting very, very close to them. So let's do a quick recap. The spirit of the white horse is a combo of Catholicism and Christianity that is ruling from the first tier, or the clergy. The spirit of the red horse is communism, which is ruling from the second tier, or the nobility. The spirit of the black horse is capitalism and is ruling from the second tier, or the nobility. And the green horse is the spirit of Islam, who is ruling from the first tier of the clergy. Also, have you noticed that the riders seem to be in the likeness of men or humans? This may indicate that all four of these spirits were either authored by men or are being used by men as a means of controlling the world. Thank you for watching, and remember, folks, to stay in love with Yahusha. So long, Nazarene, beloved of Yahuah. Living water, Baruch haba b'Shem Yahuah, Yahusha. Living water, Baruch haba b'Shem Yahuah. I sing out with praise to you,
Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my Yah. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my Yah. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. Yahusha. Living water, Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. Yahusha. Living water, Baruch haba B'Shem Yahuah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my Yah. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba Bashem Yahuah. Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba Bashem Yahuah. I sing out with praise to you. Your name is beautiful to me, my King. I sing out with praise to you. My heart desires to honor you, my Yah. I sing out with praise to you, Yahusha. Living Torah, Baruch haba Bashem Yahuah. Baruch haba Bashem Yahuah. Baruch haba Bashem Yahuah. Baruch haba Bashem Yahuah. Yahusha. Living water, Baruch haba Bashem Yahuah. Yahusha. Living water, Baruch haba Bashem